Dear Lord, we thank you for this evening. We want to enter into another session. We ask that you lead us through. So I'm going to bring this up to you. Question for the welcome to the class, the Q&A. So the question for the first class. Question for them. So one thing that's I must say, what your question was, what is considered success, or what is all line of success in life, in a changing organization. How do you know whether you can say that, like, when she said that, I thought of the other tonight, and where we got it aligned with Toby. And things they are saying is one thing is they did not understand the nature of this kingdom. They got their ignorance, yeah. So I kind of just want to know whether organization, the aspect of organization and leadership for the life of whatever that is, like is it only part of something? Is it one of like other maybe and understand that would be the context of perspective. I'm just wondering other aspects that either qualified or disqualified and sensation from different aspects. Yes. Any other question? It's true.
So now that we understand that we are always dealing with the group or the movement as opposed to the individual. So our line is a line of success. And in every dispensation there's a test, meaning you can either pass the test or fail the test. Otherwise, what's the point of the test? So if our line is a line of success, what does that mean? Or what is the point of having a test? It's guaranteed that we are going to succeed. Or are those two different things?
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. No further question. Shall we sit down? Okay. So, question the second class. Question for the second class. Second class was Brian. Questions to Brian? Yes. So I have to first. I mean he demonstrated it, but when we have been doing it, so it's not that he did it. But I wanted to know, isn't it dangerous for us to always be predicting 3 months after the past? And I'm thinking like that I thought of it particularly not I mean dangerous, I'm saying dangerous, but the thing is like now that you're approaching say CUP, close probation, it happens. From all we have been identifying our weak marks so far, it's already after the past. COP and second child that because now I'm thinking that has been the trend of how we identify women. So that means we also identify COP and second advent after the past year.
So you started like, isn't it dangerous too?
I mean, yeah,
I didn't get
to identify remarks after we have past year. Yeah, which is what I see happening.
so identifying you mean understanding
Yes, so, yeah, like, like,
after
yeah. Okay. And then that one, yeah, another one. But that one is, I mean, he was, what he's trying to demonstrate is, events of each remark. I guess how we came up with elements and the events that happened in that remark and both external and internal. And so, strategy is, external remarks need to be related to, like, from one remark to another. You see, for internal, remarks, you have the label, the empowerment, the different the empowerment and then the formalization, and that's there's a way you can thread whatever principle or whatever message it is. So can you do the same for external remarks? I mean, I think that he was doing it because the events seemed isolated and just like events that happened, say, in 2001, these are the events that happened in 1989 and then lists them. So so from 1989 to 2000, do those external events need to be related? Like, is there a principle events, whatever thing that connects them the same way? You see that thread for the
so the question is when you look at this internal line sounding like expansion, you don't mind if it's expansion or the entire line.
it doesn't change, doesn't, even like you can see within a dispensation to make it same. So within a dispensation, whatever messages that are
It's connected.
it's connected.
Yeah.
And even those remarks, even from moving from one dispensation to another, I assume that I mean there is a connection.
So the question is, can you
also see in external remarks? Can we declare the
okay? Any questions? Brian, questions? No questions. Questions to Gladys? Questions for Gladys? Okay. No questions. So we'll start with just for this question. Discussion of yeah, I have that. Yes, I have that one. So Gladys has one question. So we'll start with the questions from Emma, then a table. You have questions that were asked yesterday. So Emma has 3 questions. For questions after Emma, you will have the table. You can go first, then I will. So this is the idea. I go there. Question number one, we talked that the date of January 6th. So Joseph was asking. Joseph was asking. How is the fragility of January 6th unique? Yeah, unique. So,
so then it's yesterday you spoke about the fragility of American systems, and you highlighted the January 6th resurrection to be a point out how that systems. Yes. So the question it's in two ways. It's in two parts. The first part is is that fragility unique to the American system? And the reason I'm asking that is almost every system norm, for example, depends on the goodwill of the people for them to obtain to stay in place. So is it that fragility is the need of the American system, or like why that fragility? Why point it out that fragility? One, two, your position made sense because people standing up against tyrannical government. So if people want stand up against oppression and oppressive regime, and so protests and something like that. So would your response be different, or would you still consider that a project system?
Thank you. Maybe to respond to the last question, if people are rising up to protest against terrorism, to be different because they want their system to remain resilient. So that won't be fragile because they are fighting for that which is good.
Okay.
Yeah. So to the first part, I think my context was, you look at the context of fragility I was referring to, is that when you look at America as an institution, let's say this is 538, then 80, then even 1798. So prophetically we mark the rise of the lamp here, but we realize that its institution began way around 1776 with the Declaration of Independence. And then we have what we call the Article of Confederation beginning in 1787 there up until when the Constitution was ratified. And what these people were trying to do is that they were running away from a monarchy, right?
Yes.
Because you consider this 538 1798, it's the period of 1260, right? It's a period of darkness. And when this foundation was being set in place, we don't expect it to be perfect, right? Do you think that constitution is perfect?
No.
Why? At a basic level, because it was put in place in the period of darkness. So by virtue of it being laid down in the period of darkness, you have to see a problem in that constitution. And the basic one is the subject of what? Slavery, right? Yeah, the subjects, people see that there was a problem there. So because people were running away from the crown of Great Britain, the 13 colonies, when they were putting that constitution in place, the delegates, not all people were there, but they wanted something that will endure. That's the people who will govern, a representative. So the reference I was making when this delegate comes out and was asked, what have you have for the people? And he says, a republic if you can keep it. That was a very, one with more weight. So a republic, from my perspective, is, a representative government where people have votes. And when he had the word that if you can keep it, the word you is referring to the people. So the endurance of this republic or constitutional democracy depends upon the people. For them to, either to continue with protecting the rights of the people or choose again to go back to the old, the monarchy system. So it's you to choose. That's why I think it's very fragile. It was not like sure. Benjamin was not telling him that, sure, you have something that will endure forever. Benjamin knew that this thing will not endure forever because, it's the people, and you have diversity of people. Those who want this one, those who want this one. So it's upon them to decide whether they want this system to just remain intact or you can have, chaos. That's, I think, I understood, but maybe someone in the audience can add that. How you understand, because I know that word, if you can keep it, majority of us are aware of that. I'm not sure, I'm trying to help. Yes.
When the knowledge of what President Bank is able to do is, I think it's clear and what I say now potentially, because when you look at the democratic processes that are put in place. So, for example, you have elections, and the outcome of the elections are supposed to be binding unless they're contested and they're overturned, right?
By binding means binding for good or bad.
No. Once people have had an election,
yes,
the only other way you can contest an election is through the what's say, for example.
Sure.
So when you do not go that route and you go and meet the truth,
yes,
then that in itself is chaos.
Yes,
right?
Yes, that's true.
But that is like breaking the law. So you have the law in places that will tell you some prescribed do's and don'ts. So the fact that the people who would break the law does not make you say that law is actually valid. I don't know the engagement the comparison are making. So you have a democratic process that actually supposed to have everyone like abide by it. But you have a few standouts of people, those who participated in the insurrection. So they are to face, say, the government. The same process of the democratic governments prescribes for people who break the law how they should be handled. And typically that is what happened, right? So you get, or you at least tell me you understand why I'm finding problem with it being labeled as a fragile system in that sense.
Okay, I'm getting it. So by fragility, what I understand that when this constitution is put in place, or rather law, the outcome is that there shouldn't be any chaos, that it's just like all people will follow it for it to endure. Now, the fragility in this context, when you have like, for example, let's go to Venezuela, where we have Maduro.
Yes.
Like, even here in Tanzania, 99% they vote for one person. Like, you can see some kind of falsehood there.
Yeah.
And when people go to the court and they protest and say, like, this person did not lawfully win this election, you want us to do a rerun. And then this person, whether Maduro or Samia Suluhu, they say, no, we won the election. And they can justify like through the law. So do you think that law is fair?
And I think that, yes, when you're giving that example, those are actually not credible election. So because the context you're speaking about is...
Yes, okay, they are not credible election.
Yes.
So what should the law do?
What should the law?
Now, the law, you people have identified, indeed, this election was not fair. So what should they do? What does the law require?
The people.
Yeah, the people decided that we don't want this person, but this person have used the same system and he's arguing that I won the election. So do you think that is fair?
No, that is not fair.
And I think, according to, for me, how I view Benjamin Franklin was, is in that sense that, yes, we have a republic, we have the law. It's you, the people, who govern it. And when he adds the word that if you can keep it, which means there's a possibility that people cannot keep it. If people have really realized that this person did not want the election, they have gone to the protest, they want to bring this person down. Why is this person still remaining? Because the law requires that you step down, let us do a rerun, but you, through any other means, you remain in power again. So what is the purpose of that law again?
That's why I asked you if your position would be different
Yes.
if it was people standing up against a tyranny. Because in the second example that you've given, you clearly have someone, for example, who block the systems of power to ensure that they are perpetually in power. So if people stand up in that case and decide that they're going to protest so that they have this person vacate office on one hand, and on the other hand, Trump and his insurrectors deciding that we want to overturn Biden's election. So if you have these two in mind, when you talk about fragility, the fragility will apply to both instances of just one.
So let me ask you, for example, when you say prophetically that the sixth kingdom by the time we come to Sunday law is not even functioning, what do you mean by that? Because at the beginning, they hope to endure. Like even Benjamin Franklin was alive today, he could do the same as life. I told you before, this system you thought like it will protect you forever. It's not even like what you purpose it to be. Yes, Brad. Brad then wrote this.
Thank you. So, I think the manner in which understanding the discussion,
Yes.
I would like to build it from what you just started illustrating. You drew that structure there, and then you gave us 2 points. That's 1776. That's 1789. I think I'm aware of 1789, around that year. So I think those were 2 important turning points in the establishment of the United States. So the first one, if I would give it like some symbolic term, I would call it nationalism. The first one. That is when a group of people come together and come up with an identity that they were able to isolate themselves from the British colonies and have an identity which we call the Declaration of Independence. At that point, we don't have a state, but we have a nation. So there's a difference between a nation and a state. So there's something I would now like maybe try to connect it with fragility. There's something fragile about having a nation without a state. That is why it was significant to later, thanks to those, I don't want to call them the forefathers.
The framers of the Constitution.
The framers of the Constitution. Thanks to these people who came and sat down and developed this system we call a state. So we always have this identity, and it becomes fragile because this identity can consolidate against other people, and whichever ideology they develop becomes like the state's identity. So I think that's what about the fragility of the United States. Because I remember back, there's this 2020 study that is the scene of the United States. I think it was connected with the issue of state nationalism. And I think that is what we see in January 6. We have our people who have identified how the nation should look like, an identity. And now through elections, through the state, you can have a state developing the identity or the ideology of this nation or group of people who come together legally. And that is now the thing about the fragility. Because through legal means, a section of people who have developed an identity, which is really isolationist in nature, can through a state in which is elections, they can have power of implementing this ideology, like what we see now in the United States.
Thank you for your arguments, Rogers.
So, my comment to begin from maybe understanding the tone of the argument. Because when we are having back and forth, people are standing up for against an authoritarian regime. That's not like
Someone's not raise your voice.
so I'm saying I want to begin by defining the word Friday. So, if you look at the American system of governance, which is spelled out, or you know, the playbook for that is the American Constitution.
Yes.
Why was that system put in place? Be of good to the people, the government of the people, by the people, for the people. It is there to serve the people, to do good to the people. But now, we don't expect that this same system can be manipulated to end up doing bad to the people. So fragile means something can easily be broken. So when they set this constitution in place, they thought it was airtight. We can circumvent it to have their own way against that which the constitution spells out. And I'm going to agree with you that if we look at Donald Trump from the past presidency to date, he has exposed the fragility in the American system of governance, which is spelled out in the Constitution. As an example, he was able to successfully lead a coup in January 6th. Was he personally held accountable for that? He was not. The people were, but Trump was not as a person. There is something that them are also identified. On June 22nd, 2024, 2025, sorry, he launched an attack on the Iranian nuclear facilities without the approval of Congress. Is he held accountable for that? So Trump has identified loopholes in that American system that he can exploit without necessarily being held accountable. That's my understanding. I think there's something. So you have this. So we understand that conservatives have this something that is bad for humanity, but they want to have this something that is bad, but to legally implement it. So what have they identified? There are loopholes in the American system. They can go with this bad ideology and use the very system that was designed to do good to the people to use it to bring harm to the people. That's my understanding of Friday.
That's something.
Yeah. I guess I understand it. Okay. I'm slightly differently. So I thought, yeah, I thought you and Joseph Alonso were saying the same thing. And it's because if you think about it, well, I don't think you can use democracy to do bad. I think democracy in its structure and how it operates, it is a strong system that if say exercise fully, or it depends on like if everyone does what democracy says it should do, everyone can be protected and systems and other things can operate. Well, and so democracy in itself is a very strong system that elected them, then it can do good or can bring whatever success in the society that is necessary. But I understand the fragility in that what Joseph first to is would be like democracy depends largely on quickly that the persons, the people who are in authority or who are governing are going to respect what democracy states. You know, if you fail, there's a possibility, you even step down, we elect another person. Like I think democracy actually allows for example, voters to make mistakes in choosing the leaders and then another system may think someone else. So yeah, it's the system that can allow it relies on the people to respect. So if you have someone like Trump or any other person who comes and says, I don't care what to do with this, I don't think about what the systems that for example, if someone comes and says I don't respect that system, they can override it and bring other. So I think that is the fragility of democracy, the fact that it actually relies on us to implement it.
Okay, thank you, Nefi. Before I give someone else, just to reiterate, the context of what I would say, as Rogers is saying. I think waymarks and stories are defined based in context, right? And our context here is that we have a lamb which is rising up, and it's for the good of the people, right? They want to say we need equal rights for all people, not something bad. And the fragility that we are just referring here is that something bad is coming on stage to subvert that which was good. So when people are just tired, when you look at the Declaration of Independence 1776, if you read that article, people will enumerate what they hate about Great Britain. That Great Britain, we are just paying taxes and these taxes are going well, or something else. Why should people govern us here in our land while they are well in Europe? They had a lot of contentions, and now they want to have a more perfect union that will be good for themselves. They don't want something bad that will reflect what? The kings. So when Benjamin is asked by this woman, what do you have for us now? He said, a republic. So we need to define what a republic is. And we are saying that it's a government for the people. It's the people who are governed, right? And they are governed specifically for what? For something good. No anything bad you can't bear. So when this woman is asking, in her mind, he wants something that will enjoy. Will never have any problem, any chest, any disrespect, etc. So if he says, if you can keep it, what does that statement say? There's a possibility that you can't keep it. That's true, Effie. Mm-hmm. If someone says, if you can keep it, there's a possibility that you can't keep it. And if you can keep it, then it's for your goodness. If you can't, then you are just destroying what that you want. So which means, according to my observation, the word fragile is that if we are going to have individual, like let's not even come to Donald Trump. Let's come to American Civil War. Because that's where the Gettysburg speech by what's his name? Abraham Lincoln. He's introducing this word like this government was meant to be what? For all people. Now he's beginning to realize the idea of even although he had a bad idea about slavery, but all people ought to be included in this government. And according to him, if I was to look at him, this constitution, it became fragile because people were not obedient to it, to include all people, irrespective of the race they have, etc. I think that's the context that we find fragility. For it to be endurance, it has to remain on the platform of a lamb. And you're going to have a dragon voice, then it becomes fragile. That can collapse any time if the people are not resilient to it. I think that's it. Yes, Rogers. Then
There's someone who made a statement.
who?
Someone.
Yes,
Someone made a statement that democracies require the eternal vigilance of the people for them to survive.
Yes, that's true.
If we sleep or we lose them. So when we say if you can keep it, that is there's a possibility of losing.
Yeah.
So if not something strong that is there, that is self-executing, no, it depends on the internal vigilance of the people for you to survive.
And I think that is the sign of that woman when he was asking Benjamin Franklin, what do you have for us? And Benjamin was very categorical, like, well, we have a republic if you can keep it. And I think time's moving. Let me just please remind me your name.
So,
Nick, yeah. Yes, Nick.
I was thinking whether we can have a system which is not fragile. It can conceptually exist. And I was thinking whether the government of God is not fragile as well. Whether Lucifer could not win that battle. I know Lucifer did not succeed to be the president to occupy the office of God or something like that. I don't know. It's possible to have a system which is not fragile. Whether it's democracy or not democracy, you can come to things. So it's kind of whether if this is fragile, whether there is a possibility to have something that's not fragile.
I think there is a possibility at the end of the day, if if you come to the close of probation and Christ, takes back the crown, and then he tells Satan, "No, I've won the war." What does that tell you about God's kingdom? Because Satan wanted to prove that I can take it, and God has been patient all throughout history with humanity to tell them, you look at God's government and Satan's government. What do you think about it? And then at the end of the day, at the close of probation of the second advent, God takes back the crown. What does that tell you? It's another topic of discussion. No, that's a big complex question. Thank you. And then the last one.
I just wanted to clarify the point. I think that Rogers just said that democracy requires the people to be eternally vigilant. Would we say those people are the leaders? Because is it actually on the shoulders of the lay people, or is it just the leaders that have to be eternally vigilant? Because do the lay people really have power?
Unless you want to
Export with the leaders.
Leaders, yeah.
That's how they say something.
yes.
When you look at the American system, the reason why you have seen it as very strong is because the people who have occupied that leadership position have had the goodwill. Some things are norms, they are not law. They have had the goodwill to go along with the norm of the nation. Trump has come and challenged that. And now it's so, there are loopholes that someone can exploit to bring back to the people. So we think that system itself.
Okay. I think we can just close it there. I think there's another question from Brian.
No, I have one question. So the other question is,
Yes.
someone wanted to understand how you can see equality in 2001.
How we can see it.
Yeah.
Okay. I may not have a straightforward answer, but I am hoping that the class will also assist me to say this. Yes. I think the best way I can answer that, we have this model of Boston, Concord, and Exeter, and we realize that when you stand at Boston, you don't even see something there, right? You don't see it. It's up until you stand where the use of knowledge and formalization. So whatever you're going to study here, before even the test begins and the shadow comes here, whatever you're going to study here, it will tell you about what? No, not equality. It will tell you about whatever you study at Concord and Exeter. It will take you back to Boston, right? So once you have an experience of this time period, you realize, oh, what I'm studying here, it was conceived where? At Boston. So for me, we began, understanding the minute I came in 2018 when it came in the public record. It began to introduce these elements, of equality, feminism. We can all attest that. So once you have that model, and then you bring this idea about Boston, Concord, and Exeter, and then you realize, okay, then what was unseen here then? Because if you ask this question, then it will take you back and ask, it will tell you that the message that was unseen here was, the last 6 verses of Daniel. You can just say Daniel 11, right? By the time you come to 1996, you realize that. You say 1999, there's a message which came. So if you are giving this history, then you must understand what was unseen here. And this two-way mark will tell you that answer. I think at a basic level, that's what I see it. But we could not just stand in 2000 and say, okay, we have seen something. No, it's up until you have an experience of increase of knowledge and formalization. That's when you recognize that equality was unseen in 2000. Unless someone has another approach. That's what we say.
What? It's just that the latest people.
Yes.
Okay, when you're saying equality, you're not limiting that to gender equality.
No. It's just our whole package.
So the understand she did is the fight for being married.
Yes.
Did. Remember
That's
that?
it, one, I think.
There were events connected to being married
Yeah.
in 2001.
Yeah.
So that's why you can see it there. Another point is 2001 marks the arrival of the second day. You saying Babylon is falling, is falling. So the question is, who is Babylon? And what is this that is connected to Babylon that the Lord is calling us out of? So if you compare the Babylon is writing conservative, the writing conservative of the United States,
Okay.
and all that we live in their worldview, and that's what God is calling us out of. Their worldview is a patriarchal, sexist worldview, and if God is calling us out of that, then on to the opposite worldview, which is the view of equality. So again, through the arrival of the second angel, you can see equality. Another thing that could be the first angel is a power,
Yeah.
and in the first angel, you see equality. The last 6 verses of Daniel 11. So I think those are the
So equality, as we said yesterday, is just a code word for the last is command. The last is command is general. Not just about individuals, even how nations treat each other. Because nations just people, states, okay? That's why we have, diplomacy, etc. So equality is not about gender equality alone. The reason why you just have a because already they tend to say gender equality, we have to identify a problem among the people who is being oppressed. Okay, that is the reason. But equality is just a general term. So when you say Elder Tess, by virtue, you are saying her ministry began all around 2019, right? 2018, let's say 2018, 2019. Yeah, and when she began teaching that, we realized that what she's arguing is all about humanity. Yeah. Any other person who can help to answer that? Lena, you have something? No, all right. Yes, the person who asked that question, I'm hoping that at least you are satisfied. I have another question.
Another question is from Rogers.
Yeah.
He's asking about the fourth kingdom,
Mhm.
which you mark as a public in the fourth and the fifth as a fifth.
Yeah.
So fourth you have fifth and the fifth both are wrong. So how do you reconcile that with Julius Caesar, which you know that mark to the change of the public? It's fair if I'm speaking and so.
Okay. So you say it's Julius Caesar who we identify as a marker of that transition, right? So the reason why we went to Rome, because we read this, we went to Romans. And we say that when you read Romans 13, verses 1 to 9, and this is Paul. And Paul is suggesting that let us, as a people, subject the higher powers, higher authority, which are equated to government. And when you read the Bible, especially when you go to all prophets or the New Testament, we need to identify the geography of where the prophets are standing on. And we realize that by virtue of these words, Paul was in this history, Rome, right? And when Paul was there, I assume that he was not telling people, to subject to oppressive government. I presume that the government that was there by then, it was good. And I got that logic from this book, The Two Republic by A.T. Jones. That Rome, it came to a time like it was good that it's the people who began to govern. They were being ruled by governors, senators, and consuls. And these offices, they were elected by the people. And when these leaders, they become bad, they could be removed. So it was kind of a representative government, a republic. But that book, I just read the first chapter, but it came to a time, democracy doesn't fall instantly. Like a republic, like you come to a time and say, just falling instant like that. It's progressive. Like if you're standing here, democracy is here, it begins to fall like this. It's a process up until you come to a point that it's no longer fit for purpose. And if I introduce Julius Caesar, I put Caesar somewhere here. That this representative government of Roman and public, it began somewhere here. By the time you come to Julius Caesar, it just becomes worse. That's how I view it. Because you can see even before Julius Caesar, people had already began becoming bad people. Like there's an Emmett Jones, there's some governors who are there. I think Caligula, something like that. They already began, destroying that system that the Romans had put in place. By the time Julius comes on stage, it's all set and done. You cannot, keep it. That's why I think we identify Julius Caesar as that transition. It's like the behaviors of Donald Trump today. Donald Trump did not just wake up in the morning and say, like, I'm destroying things. There's something that were put in place that Donald Trump took advantage. And I think in my presentation, tomorrow's my second presentation, we'll be looking at Dick Cheney. Anyone knows Dick Cheney here? The vice president who? George Bush. Everything that Donald Trump is doing now, they were put in place by Dick Cheney, right? So, and we cannot come and say, it's Donald Trump was done that. He, is going back and taking advantage of whatever loopholes that were put in place by Dick Cheney. That's what the same thing with Caesar. He's taking advantage of whatever happened before. So unless you have, yes?
So that's a follow-up, whether I've understood what you're saying.
Yes.
So the dictatorship starts at the same kingdom, number 4.
Yeah. Internally, there's progress. Doesn't happen instantly like that. Even you go to the history of World War II, Hitler. Hitler did not just come like that system did not just come fragile and Hitler is coming and he begins to become dictatorial. It was a compromise of the leadership of the way public leaders there who began compromising, doing a lot of bad things. And when Hitler came, he did what he did. Rogers, I think if you have any clarification, maybe you have other thoughts. Then John.
Maybe I've explained it. This is maybe what came to my mind from explanation.
Yes.
Is maybe how could I was thinking
Yes.
Maybe this idea of Julius Caesar taking out from a republic to a monarchy is one perspective. But you again saying the fourth is a republic, and then we go to the fifth as a dictatorship. There is a point you're trying to make. And what came to my mind is we do a study and identify Abraham Lincoln as a dictator. Yes. But we can't say that USA changes into a dictatorship during the Civil War, that time period. I think there are many US presidents you have taken. Some, I think Andrew Johnson, the one was in fit.
Johnson?
Johnson, yeah, whatever. We are talking about the one who's put together what is this law in 1798?
1798.
The Alien
Sedition Act.
Yeah. So I think you can get presidents within the history of the US who can fit the bill of dictators. But that does not mean that US as an institution has taken into a dictatorship. We take that into the future in our time period. And I was there is a class that was done, and then I was questioning someone, under which system would you prefer to be? The Jewish system or the Roman system? Someone said the Jewish system, and they will challenge that to say, the Ten Commandments says you should not covet my property. And in that system, that property includes a woman. So we want to live under that system. It's a horrible system to live under. But if you go to Rome, it has the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That's where Paul and his fellows are able to move freely and preach the gospel. So I think from that perspective, from what you said, I could understand why you could do that.
And then, you remember this, in every reformatory movement, there is means for spreading the gospel. Like in the Roms, we have good roads, and you ask yourself, how did that good roads come into effect? It's because there's a good system of governance that devalues the way of life of the people. Like John.
I think with Rogers's comments, my question is answered. Although I'm still wondering, yes, Julius Caesar, was he just an isolated person who was a dictator, and there were other people after him? Because I thought his reign marked the beginning of that, transition from a republic to a dictatorship, like completely. It's not just him who was a dictator, and there were, his was not an isolated case. It was Rome in general becoming a dictator. So with that, then I'm not very sure. Like I get there are examples of Lincoln and the rest, but I don't know if it's the same as Julius Caesar, because I thought the case of Julius is a complete transition from one form of government to another form of government.
And you want to react to John's question?
I would say something linked by maybe she will not answer. When you look at this kingdom,
Rogers, please speak now.
sorry, when we look at this kingdom of Bible prophecy, there was a structure we drew rise back, where they rise, they reach the peak, they begin to rule, then they go down. Then what is that thing? This way, straight, then going down. Yes. Yeah. So this is when they are rising. This point of the they have peak, they have power, they begin to rule, and then that history they go down. So maybe if we apply that to Rome, that could way it's going down. Can you say that?
So you say here is rise,
Rule, they begin going down.
then fall.
Before. So if you can say this is the rise of the Roman Republic, the ruling of the Roman Republic, now that republic going down. So this other section, we associate that with Julius Caesar. This one bringing that, yeah, that
This one and this one.
no, this one only.
From there. Yeah, this one. That's why it's going something like this one.
I think that's
It
what
is this one.
maybe I don't know that.
Joy, if Sapphire still.
I don't think about it.
Okay, so please, because of time, Nick, I know you have a lot of questions. Could you please let us just move forward, right? Sabina, another question.
The question is from Brian
Yeah.
about what justification we have on the change of leadership 2001.
I think I got Brian's question. You interacted that during our free time. Maybe I can just continue with it. Now, this change of leadership here, before we look at it, sometime back before the Midnight Cry message, we all agreed that all of us agreed that there was change of leadership at 9/11. The justification we had, does anyone remember the word spiritual formations?
Yeah.
Yeah? That when Adventists, they passed a spiritual formation in 2001, that's now the change of leadership.
Mm.
And do you think that change is just literal there? Yeah?
Mm.
Because these words here, they were never meant to exist. Is that true? You just develop them through methodology. They are not there in inspiration with it. So every symbols that we bring them here, you have to try as much as possible to try to figure the implication. And when we're having these thoughts that Adventist leadership, because they were supposed to accept that the present truth for this time is the book of Daniel chapter 11 that will be guiding us to, because 1989 we have this transition from 6 to 7, and God wants us to understand the seventh kingdom. And understanding seven kingdom is just about politics, understanding geopolitics. And the leadership, because they have that, great influence the people from the church, they're supposed to understand it, but they did it. So by the time we come to 2001, according to the testimony of Elder Tex, what marks the shift from Adventist leadership to this movement is the arrival of the second and the third angel. So they're going to unpack and to understand more about the nature of God's kingdom that was, was put in place here in this time period. That's what will make the change of leadership, not about spiritual formation. It's about the arrival of the second and the third angel message. I think Brian's question as was you're discussing is asking, what justification do I have to say that for me, we are going to see a change of leadership at the close of probation? And the argument that I was having there is that if you look at this, for example, this is a crown. Then here we have the image of Daniel 2. And from inception in heaven, Satan wanted to be equal to who? To Jesus, though in a very unlawful way, because he was not created in God's image. And he wanted to ascend to where? He wanted to be the king of the north, right? Yeah, that's what Ezekiel and I think Isaiah are describing. And when he brought that part of here now, he wanted to assume that on that he indeed he saw that God was not fair. So my argument, there's this book of Ezekiel, chapter 21, verse 21 to 25, where Ezekiel, where was Ezekiel when he's writing the book of that book? It was in Babylon, right? And where was Daniel? Because there were prophets that were taken captive. We have Ezekiel and Daniel. Providentially, where was Daniel? In the kings, in the court. But Ezekiel was with who? The people serving the sanctuary there. So he's telling these people that just like Jeremiah, don't fight back. Don't just be submissive. Do what the kingdom is saying, because the time will come when you go back. And he's trying to encourage them. And he tells them, you had an opportunity back when in Canaan to do what God wanted you to do, but you disobeyed. And that crown was taken from you and given where? To this kingdom. And according, there's a book, Education, by Ellen White. Ellen White would say that kingdom, that crown was taken, then it was overturned, and then God will come back and do what? And check back. And I'm telling you, this crown, the reason why we have power struggle in this kingdom is all about Satan wants to maintain this, this rulership up until you come to the seventh. I'm saying when you come to the seventh kingdom, God will have to take it back. And we're marking the rise of the seventh kingdom. You can say the transition between 2012, but let me just put here. By the time we come to the Sunday, we have the seven. That's why right now we're having a knowledge about the seventh kingdom. Now, 2024 as a Sunday law, we can put Revelation 18:1 to 3, where we have the second angel is empowered. And when you look at the structure of the Revelation 18, and Revelation 18 is a continuation of Revelation 17 because it begins the word what? End. And you look at that language, those kings who had committed fornication with this woman, it came to a time when they hated that woman. You say, you have lied to us. They are seeing like this kingdom is coming to an end. It's perishing. So with that in my mind, and I hope you just guide me on that, we usually define waymark based on context. Like, for example, in the morning I had us, having interaction about testimony for the church, volume 9, page 11 to 14, right? And we say contextually, Ellen White knows nothing about 1989 and 2001. He only knows 1898, 1844, the Sunday law, and close of probation. So these verses were placed at the close of probation. And for us, what we did, I think there is a study that Pamela did recently. It's called Apology and Defense, right? Looking 9/11 in the light of that win. Looking at 9/11 in the light of this testimony. So it's bringing it back here. And I'm saying if there's a change of leadership here, then by virtue, I have to see a change of leadership here. And this leadership is when God, because people begin to hate this kingdom, saying, aligned to us. And I mean, the kingdom of God is begin to be realized at this point, where when Christ is coronated as what? I don't want to use the word king, but as the true leader. Because all throughout, Satan has misrepresented who? Christ as a bad person, as a tyrannical. So that has been work of Satan throughout this period. But when you come here, it's all said and done, like people begin to see, no, the leadership that we have been having with Satan, it was not right. It was God's kingdom which was right. And that's why I'm saying, I've reading this book by Jane Andrews, one of the pioneers. It's called Judgment, Events, and Its Order. He says when you come to the close of probation, when Christ seizes his mediatorial work, he's crowned back as the leader. Because this crown has been a point of debate between good and evil. So by the time we come to the close of probation, I think we have to see that based on the testimony of Revelation 18, people begin to reject this kingdom, reject certain leadership, and then begin accepting it's God who was entitled to this crown. So the change of leadership, I'm not referring to this one. I'm just telling you to the principle. And by close of probation, you have to see again a leadership that is recognized as lawful than that of the seven kingdom. That's what I'm just saying. Unless you can just react. Yes, Rogers, you have something.
When Brian was asking that question,
Yeah.
there's something saying that the change of leadership is within the priesthood.
Mhm.
I think that spin is not correct because the change of leadership is not within the priesthood. The sense of leadership is from Adventism to the priesthood. It's not within the priesthood. So it's Adventism that is like losing their crown, and that crown is being passed on
The
to
priest.
the priest of this
In
moment.
that context there,
Yes.
9/11.
Yes, and there are examples we used to give to that effect. For example, I don't know if that is applicable, the four anointings of David.
I think something
I think the second anointing is at 2001. And that illustrates a change of leadership. There's the death of Josiah. Josiah is dying at 2000. There's a way we apply it. If you go back to that story,
I remember
the death of Josiah, that is proving a change of leadership. I think also you can put there the death of Saul at 2001, which marks that change of leadership. And which other people?
David when he's anointed.
Yeah, the anointings of David, the death of Josiah, and the death of Saul. I think those were the three witnesses we gave to prove a change of leadership at 2001 from the institution of Adventism to the institution of Islam. And then when he was connected back to the close of the world, like, how do you do that? And maybe instead of answering that, 2021 is a second advent.
For us, for
Yes,
the
I think the methodology will be the same.
Yeah.
So how is 2021 and the second advent? We first learn the second advent, understand all the properties of the second advent, because it's the bigger way money. And then we see which property of the second advent will fit into 2021.
Sure.
And one of the things we see at the second advent, when Jesus comes, says, Jesus is going to gather. Is that Matthew 25? Yeah. There is a gathering that happens from wherever, a gathering from the whole corners of whatever. So when we come to 2021, that second advent, yeah, the particular property we take from the second advent, we bring there, we connect it to the harvest of the Levites. So what that looks like, we connect that with the harvest of the Levites. There's a gathering of the second advent, which we can argue and harvest. All these people are being brought together. The crisis buy this to one place and this to the other place, so that the property will fit. So I think the same methodology will apply to 2001 and close of probation. So you take the prophets of this close of probation, all of them, you write them, and then ask yourself, which prophet of the close of probation can we see at 2001? And I think you already have an argument to correct 2-1 with the close of probation. It's an average of the close of probation. So that book already connects 2-1 and the close of probation. So then, which prophet of the close of probation can we put in there? And you say it's a single leadership. I think I agree with that.
Thank you, Elvis. I've seen Muruki, and before Muruki raised his hand, there's someone, I think Shadrach. Oh, Brian, yes, Brian. Yeah? Please, okay, because you know we have access to time. Kami kwanza na Yesu singizi sana. Tutania radhi nani Brian, eh? Tutapatana baadaye ndio discuss that. Muruki. I don't want to close you. Nataka tu zungumze tu kidogo. Then I think my sorry then. See? Muruki. Yeah, sure. Just take us little time, eh?
Yeah.
Because I'm told here by the organizers here for time is over.
Yes.
I was just supporting what Professor was saying,
Yes.
that there isn't one that shows change of leadership is the line of Christ as the priesthood.
Yes.
We mark 201 is when Christ is in the temple. It's 18 years when he is doing the work of teaching, and we show that it's because the leadership has been bypassed. So he was asking just as each other this trend also. This man just to give up. When the line of Christ the priesthood shows the change of leadership.
Thank you. So just in closing, I would like us just to go back and try to figure the context of Revelation 19, how it looks like. Because that's something that I'm just observing, but you can just still go back and argue. The last question is the last question.
Time is up.
Time is up. All right. Thank you so much for the participation.
We've come to the end of Q&A, so I just have few announcements. For those who are online, we have come to the end. For those who are online, we have come to the end of Q&A. So, and if you have any questions for those who are online, you can send it to the Diama, or you can send it to me, or into our forums. We can get there. The announcement that I have before the people, to those who are online, to leave is tomorrow. The timetable says baptism is in the evening, so we'll have the baptism the morning hours, yeah. And tomorrow, the time of baptism, that is in the evening, we will have general. Any questions that you have doesn't mean that it is not restricted to the topics that are being covered in here in the camp meeting. So any general question that you have, you can, those who are online, you can send it. And also those who are here, any questions that you have, you can send it to us, or you can question it tomorrow. Yeah. So bye-bye, the people online. I can move.